So there's been numerous times now where in the Canadian Parliament, in the House of Commons, there's been always a mention about what if we had the election right now? And that was urged by Pierre Polyev, basically giving Justin Trudeau the ultimatum of saying, hey, why are we not allowing Canadians to decide for themselves if they prefer the carbon tax or not? Which polling shows that majority of Canadians don't like the carbon tax, and for obvious reasons, on top of inflation, cost of living. It's not actually economically feasible for taxing carbon to say you're helping climate change when we're in the middle of the worst economic situation right now in history. So Pierre Polyev has always mentioned about this. He went to obviously Jagmeet Singh of the NDP party and challenged him, saying, hey, are you going to drop the coalition between you and Trudeau? Jagmeet Singh agreed to that. So there could be a bit of leverage to say that maybe we should have the election sooner and figure out a government that actually responds to the needs of the people as people are still continuing to struggle. And here's just a bit of the House of Commons here where Pierre Polyev introduced the notion of bringing the election earlier than later.
What this session of Parliament taught us is that after 9 years of this Prime Minister, everything is broken. 25% of Canadians are now living in poverty. 2 million lined up at food banks. 38% more people are homeless. Housing costs have doubled. It wasn't like this before this Prime Minister, and it won't be like this after he's gone. Will he put us through another year and a half of this costly hell, or will he call a carbon tax election today so we can elect a common sense government to axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, if the Leader of the Opposition actually cared more about Canadians than he does about his own political interests, he'd be supporting the 400,000 kids we're going to help with the National School Food Program. He'd be voting in favour, instead of opposing at every turn, the dental care program that has already helped over 200,000 seniors and will now, as of next week, start helping young people and Canadians with disabilities. He'd be standing with us on expanding childcare spaces instead of campaigning against it. But, Mr. Speaker, he doesn't care about.
So is that all the benefits of charging people double and triple for filling up the cars to go to work? Is that what the carbon tax is supposed to provide? Hey, it's okay because, kids are going to get lunches and your teeth are going to get looked at by a dentist. Is that the initiative that we're going with? Because what it seems to me is that all this money that's being generated, all this revenue is paying more of your, spendly habits of vacations and that condo in New York City that no one's really investigated or looked into. Just saying. The love, the flattery, and the kind words that the Liberal Party is entrenching into people's minds, but even Jane Fonda back in I think 2016 warned us about Justin Trudeau. Don't be fooled by this pretty face. Don't be fooled by the kind words and support initiatives, because in the end, they don't really care about any of that. It's all just nonsense. It's all just theatrics to build up more and more support. And recently, the Liberal Party and Justin Trudeau went to Nanaimo, BC, home of the Nanaimo Bar, if people are aware of that. That's a fun little fact. To do a little kind of get together, kind of political initiative before they go back to the House of Commons. I believe this week is when they return. And Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly, who we know about, who is an extensive war luster herself. She definitely, it's like a bloodhound, just desperately searching for new tactics of war. When she did those op-eds for, the National Post saying that, hey, we should not be cowing down to Russia anymore. We should be advancing more money to bloodshed and tyranny and and despair across Ukraine. Hey, we need to again advance civil war into Haiti and Latin America. Hey, we need to do this. Hey, we need to do this. Always pushing for more bloodshed instead of being peacekeepers, which I thought that was, our part of our heritage, being Canadian. So here's Foreign Affairs Minister announcing to journalists that, hey, Canadians don't want an election, just out of the blue. Listen to this.
Convince your own caucus that you guys can still win. Alexander Manga said yesterday, you can't win in the next election with Justin Trudeau off the tip. I mean, before you convince Canadians, don't you have to convince people inside?
Well, of course, and we're doing that.
So what's the message? What do you say to them to convince them that the polls are not what they are, or that they're so changeable?
So I'm gonna replay that because the one reporter is a bit low on the mic.
Convince your own caucus that you guys can still win. Alexander Manga said yesterday, you can't win in the next election with Justin Trudeau off the tip. I mean, before you convince Canadians, don't you have to?
So she's telling the Foreign Affairs Minister that, looking at polling, looking at data, you guys aren't going to win the next election because the polling is continuously decreasing. And you're not really providing a strong message. You're not really pulling people together. You're more divisive than ever. What are you going to do at the time of an upcoming election? Because you have Pierre Poilievre, your opposition leader, constantly putting forth that we need to move this election sooner and sooner, giving that ultimatum. And now Jagmeet Singh, your best bud, who was in that coalition, is also stepping aside to say, hey, we need to reconsider our government. So it looks, you're losing control. What are you going to do? What are you going to do about this? That's what the journalist is saying.
Well, of course, and we're doing that.
So what's the message? What do you say to them to convince them that the polls are not what they are, or that they're so changeable?
Mariki, what I heard this summer was Canadians don't want elections. They just want us to do the job. They just want us to govern. And that's what we're doing. We're governing. We're taking tough decisions. Why? Because times are tough. And
you heard that right, folks. I heard from people in the summer, and they said they don't want an election. They just want us to do things. They just want us to take control and for them to go pound sand. Because we're making the hard decisions for them. We're making the tough decisions for them. You should be thanking us. You should be thanking us in the end, because we're making the hardest decisions that people could be making themselves. We're doing it for you. It's okay, guys. It's okay. You go back to figuring out what's up with the Kardashians. The fact this is coming from the Foreign Affairs Minister, too, that's even more disturbing. We've heard from people that nobody wants an election. Nobody wants it. Who cares about democracy? We're doing our job, okay? We're doing our job. That's what I heard from the streets.
And so, wait, let me finish. I'm speaking.
Pulling a Kamala Harris right there. I'm speaking. Excuse me, lady. I'm speaking. I'm up here. I have the important job. I'm making tough decisions. Excuse me. I'm speaking. Oh, wow. I'm speaking.
The reality is like I said in French, is we know that cost of living is too expensive, that people are frustrated with it. So what do? We do everything to reduce the cost of things and services. So that's why we have dental care. That's why we're working on a Medicare plan. That's why we have also affordable housing. And that's also why
So I'm not exactly the economic expert. I'm not an expertise in this field, but she's telling me that in order to reduce the cost of living, we have to drag out as much taxes out of people as possible right now, as inflation is terrible, as cost of living is already a burden as that. We got to drag more taxes out of these people, more tax money out of this, do a bunch of these, business trips and vacations and the condo and going overseas to the G7, G20 summits. And then what little money is left in the pot, we'll provide that towards dental care. And that's going to somehow decrease the grocery prices. Again, I'm not an economist. I'm not a math wizard, but that doesn't seem right. That doesn't add up. The only way to solve the cost of living crisis is somehow keep the political party that started all this, the political party that still continues to rail that we need to send taxpayer money off to Ukraine, that we need to send as much money as possible, bleed out the cities dry here in Canada, kill off any prosperity in healthcare and education, all the, good pillars of society that Canada took, is valued in Canadian society. Take that away from people to send it off for more war. And that's what this lady is representing. That's who this lady is. She's constantly begging Canadians to side for more war, that we need to have more war. We need to be more aggressive towards Russia. We need to, who cares about nuclear annihilation? Who cares about Armageddon? Who cares about going against superpower? We need to do this. We need to do this. I'm saying we got to do this. I'm speaking. And now proclaiming that in order to stop the mass, to stop inflation from continuing to soar for the burn of Canadians, we got to cough up more dollars that we don't have, send it to you guys who are constantly printing money for war, and then eventually down the road in some magical fairy tale, it's going to lead to maybe dental care. But, Canadians don't want the election. That's the point I'm trying to make. That's why I said so clearly in French, so that people who are predominantly English don't know about that. You ever notice that? You ever notice that they actually kind of speak the truth the more you look at French program than they do English? I wonder why that is.
We're really working on childcare. These are all things that the government are doing. And good news, we have new people now that will be there to help us to make sure that we have a very strong economy at the same time that the middle class is protected.
But the Canadians don't want to decide that for themselves. They don't want just let's do our thing. Just let's do our thing. Pay no attention. Pay no attention to the people behind the curtain that are making this worse. People don't want this. Well, it turns out more and more do. This is from this is CTV News. They did an article about polling, and they polled people about whether they would prefer to have an earlier election or just have the regular date that they're trying to push even further, because the further they go avoiding this election, the more they get their pensions approved, which is one of the initiatives that Jagmeet Singh signed up on when he coalesced with the Liberal Party. He wanted that ability to say, hey, if I join you initiatives into the worst policies ever, then, hey, I'll at least get a nice pension afterwards. But then because Pierre Poilievre called him out and other people have rallied him and saying that, you're part of the NDP, you're supposed to be in opposition to the Liberal Party, not coalescing with them, calling that out, Then he had to make the ultimate decision. He had to make that ultimate decision. I'm pretty sure he's still going to get his stupid pension anyway, but he's making himself look like he's actually a fighter when he's not. So there's a poll that says preferred timing for Canada's next federal election. Survey respondents were asked, what is your preference when it comes to the timing of the next federal election? And you can see there's the pie graph there, and 46%, and this is back 2023. This was an online random survey from November 30th to December 2nd, 2023. So Christmas time of last year, that 46% preferred to have the election as soon as possible. That number is increasing, folks. That number is over half. I don't know the exact, current number at this point, but it is definitely increasing. As the Foreign Affairs Minister is lying to you, is lying to the press there by saying that I spoke to Canadians and they don't want this election. And they trust us. Trust the science. That was just a blatant lie. As people are so desperate, they are desperate in the situation that we're in right now. They are desperate for a way out. And considering the fact that they are not doing anything to lower the cost of living, they're not doing anything to rein in inflation, they're not doing anything to hold themselves accountable for the mass spending that they've done to overseas wars, to the military industrial complex, to having these vacations, not even reining in that, not even looking to themselves into how they may have caused this situation. Obviously, people are going to say that they have enough. They've had enough of the Liberal Party. They had enough about Justin Trudeau. They had enough about all this. There was already enough of this way beforehand. But now it's more than ever clear that they want an election as soon as possible as a way out of this horrendousness of the neoliberal establishment of Justin Trudeau and Chrystia Freeland and Melanie Joly and Theresa Tam and all these other horrible people that took in Canada for granted, took in people, threw them under the bus, did everything just horrific to the ordinary public. And there are people out in the streets, there's 10 cities all across Canada that are so desperate. They're so desperate for a way out. And if it comes down to having another election, then by all means, they'll have another election if that's what the people want. But the sad part is, as I've informed people, and this is not, to bring a bummer to everything. This is not to say that democracy is a complete waste of joke or, don't do any political activism. I'm not saying that. Obviously, gather many people, support grassroots movements, campaign, all that stuff. The problem with this is, and this has a lot to do with where our government comes from, is that even if we had an election earlier, even if Pierre Poilievre was able to call an election, Justin Trudeau committed to it, Jagmeet Singh committed to it, and we got to the campaign trail right now. Doesn't matter who's in office. Doesn't matter who's in office. The fact our government is, the fact that the Parliament building and the entire House of Commons is so deeply trenched with corruption, not just from corporations in Canada, but overseas interest. None of this matters because this is their ultimate goal. This is their ultimate plan. This is the WEF plan in action, that eventually inflation is going to take such a muck to people that you're not going to be able to afford anything. You won't have anything. but you'll be told to like it. You'll be told to deal with it. And anyone that speaks out against it is going to be met with the thought police, which is also a tactic of theirs. It's all rolled out on the red carpet of the WEF's plan to seize control of governments around the world. And here we are, just an example of it. We're part of that lab experiment that our government came as directive by the WEF. They trained Justin Trudeau under their Young Leaders program to do this stuff. And even if Pierre Poilievre does say the right thing and, promises to clamp down on this, again, you have highly influential, highly huge tycoons of high business interests, of bankers, of international corporations, monopolies, Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos and Galen Weston and so many individuals and people of the WEF and the WHO, they're just able to buy up and seize as much of the government control as they want. And they already have lobbyists that are controlling on all these parties. So, obviously the election would be a step forward, but just keep in note that just picking the right person is not going to solve the problem. Just saying that we need Justin Trudeau out is not going to solve the problem. The only way that's going to solve the problem is grassroots initiatives that we could be doing right now as working class people outside of governmental and establishment norms. That's what we should be doing. People like Christian Smalls, who organize people for a labor rally to unionize Amazon in Staten Island. That's what we could be doing. We could be doing, the protests are to help to stop the war in Gaza, like those kinds of initiatives. Because it's not really going to actually be the ultimate solution to all the problems that are caused in correlation with the mass amount of corruption that our governments have encapsulated themselves with. That's just, my understanding of it. And again, I'm not trying to downbeat on it and say that everything's just, awful. I'm not trying to be that kind of, disappointment, the Debbie Downer person, but reality is your entire country has been bought and sold out, and we need to gather together and really hammer down and get our country back. That's really what it takes.